Ah, there we are. Misty, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Well, I hope everything is working. Hello, everybody.
Hey, y'all.
Yeah, sorry for making you wait so long. We had some issues. Like me, Greg is not that smart with modern technology, and between he and I, we couldn't figure out nothing. Misty saved the day,
No.
as she normally does. Look at her. She's so
Liar.
smart. She's smart and
He
pretty.
called
And
you, not me.
all right. Let's get right down to it since we're already running a few minutes behind. The guy we got tonight has been on a couple interviews on other channels and everything. He's had some of the craziest experiences like of anybody. He's had a ton of dealings with boogers in his area. I don't know if we'll necessarily go back over all of it because it's been covered in some of the other stuff, but let me bring on our friend Greg. Greg,
Hey, hey guys, how are y'all?
Hey, how are
there
you?
he is. How are you, man?
Oh man, living the dream every day.
Yeah, me too. That's what I tell everybody anyway.
We hear you good. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I got y'all pretty good.
Okay.
All right, good. So everything's working. Now it's just up to me to ruin this damn show. All right, Greg,
It'll be easy.
it wouldn't be hard for me. Greg, do you want to recap? Where do you want to start? Because this is with a lot of these people, and Greg's a prime example. In order to do it justice, you really have to know a lot of his stuff from way back whenever it all first started. The problem is that in order to do it, it would take we'd have to spend 7 or 8 hours going back to the beginning and talking about all that and everything. And he's already done that a couple times. But just in case nobody on here has seen any of your earlier stuff, you want to just start with like just a real brief how you got into it and first found out about the boogers and everything, and maybe we'll just like skip over some of the stuff and go to what's happening now.
Sure. I mean, man, like I said, we'll talk about whatever y'all want to. It doesn't matter to me, but
I want to talk about guns, the deer you got, the last picture that you sent me, and barbecue. I really, unless you're going to bring up the damn white sauce, but I really don't want to talk about 8 hours worth of boogers because I talk to you on the phone all the time. I'd be like, damn, I've already heard this story.
well, you and I we love to talk about anything, and a lot of
Right.
it's the intricacy of redneckism. But yeah, it's we'll talk about what you want to. I mean, for the people that don't know me, don't know anything about me, and guys, I'm gonna start off and apologize because the only way I got on here was today was I had to use my phone. So if I'm wiggling and I'm making anybody seasick, y'all just overlook that. Uh, the computer's over here, and I live in the middle of nowhere. And like Spencer said, computers. Now, if we was out in the woods survival, we'd be fine.
We
But
would.
don't count on me to be doing computerism stuff. So anyway,
Don't start, Bama. Don't start.
that's what I'm talking about. Thank you, brother. Bama got my back. We know how white sauce. You get down here. When you get down here, we're gonna give you some proper white sauce.
I've had it.
Oh my gosh, you just don't know, man. Look, it don't get no better than white sauce.
Oh,
Mine's
yes, it
nearly
does.
second to none. We get down here, get you some chicken, or if I can kill you some of these young rabbits this spring, get you some smoked rabbits basted in that white sauce. See what you got.
Uh-huh.
It'll make your tongue beat your brains out. Oh, but back on what we're going to talk about, guys. I've been dealing with these things for a little over 20 years, and I was oblivious to them, especially right here where I live. Now, even growing up, when I was growing up, you'd hear stories. People talk about they'd seen something they couldn't explain. You'd hear somebody seen something didn't make sense. But where I live, we like I said, we kind of middle of nowhere. My land where I'm sitting right now, if I spun this phone around, walk out here on the porch, I could show you Bankhead Forest signs. I mean, national forest right here on top of me. My land joins it here. I've got some more land down the road here, about 4 miles that joins the forest. Where my house is, about 7 miles. I mean, this forest is nearly 300,000 acres. It's huge. So we got a whole lot of nothing. But guys, I've been dealing with these things a long time, and it just kind of, I didn't go looking for them. They found me. I guess that's the best way I can explain it. And maybe, Spencer, if y'all can give everybody a link to the 6 shows that I've done last year, with Mark and Larry and with Bama, and you've been on there with it, part of it, but get everybody some links up, and guys, they're in. You can go look at them, and if you can do it chronological order, go down through there, see what I've done, shared with everybody, and I'm still a long way from sharing everything that's happened. I mean, I'm a long way from it. Just it's absolutely mind-boggling and crazy. Once I got into this, and once everything started revealing itself, and we figured out what was going on, and I mean, I'd been dealing with these things over here where I hunt for a few years before I ever saw one, and I mean, I knew what it was, but I couldn't believe what it was till I actually saw one, flesh and blood, saw it. And then it was like, there it is. And I mean, there it is. And the first sighting I had, I was in a truck going down the road, and I had a daytime sighting. And it was, hey, wait a minute. What is today? What's the date?
The 29th.
Hey,
January
guess
29th.
what? 29th. Y'all will hear me on them other episodes. The first one I saw was January the 29th of 2009. So today's the anniversary of the first one I ever laid eyes on. But it was January 29th, 2009. I was going down the road, come over the crown of the hill. It was a long straightaway. Far end of the straightaway, the road banks to the left, pretty sharp curve. I thought it was a hunter. Came out of the woods. I had to work that day. It was on Saturday. The things I see, what I thought was a hunter, and he was like shaded by some pine trees right side of the road. This thing steps out, and first thing pops in my mind is I'm having to work. I'm already mad because they called me into work. I used to work for a propane company and drove a bobtail delivery truck that hauls big, like 2,600 gallon tank. And I would haul propane to people's houses. Well, it was cold. They called us in, kind of emergency. Hey, we need y'all to work. We got people ringing the phones off the hook. So I came in and was working. Well, guess what? My wife was going hunting, and I wasn't real happy. I had to work. And our deer season then here went out the last day of January. So I only had the 29th, 30th, 31st. And this was the very last weekend of hunting season that year. Well, like I said, I wasn't happy. I had to work.
Hold on. Look at that.
January 21st, 2007, first encounter. There we go.
We're solving mysteries on the damn show right now.
Yeah.
Everybody get off here and go to Alabama.
Well, guys, like I said, I had dealt with these things for several years because we had I ain't gonna say a hunting lease. My cousin, and I've told it, I'll just back through it. My cousin, they owned a timber company, and he had a lot of land, and he had going down from where I'm sitting right now. If I go out to the pavement, go up the road less than half a mile, there's Forest Service Road. The end of that Forest Service Road, which is mile and a half down in the woods, just a old road. He had a 40-acre tract of land that joined the lake. Well, it was grown up. It had been clear cut, and it just came back, everything just volunteered, just bushes and trees and just growed up mess. And this stuff was up, 6, 7, 8 foot tall, just growed up mess. And I hit him up because it was surrounded by government land. And I'm thinking, all these thousands of acres of government land around this, it's harder for people to hunt. They can't plant any green fields. They can't have any box blinds, permanent ladder stands. And I'm thinking, if I can get my cousin talked into, hey, let me hunt this, me and my dad we'll go hunt it, and I'll carry Dad's bulldozer. I'll build some green fields and clean the road out, because there was like log roads that went around through it where they'd skidded the trees out. And I initially hit him up about it. And he's like, well, I don't care. You go hunt it. Any day. He said, why don't y'all just, I said, yeah. So if you go down there and do whatever you want to on that property, I don't care. I could have took the dozer and cleared every inch of it, and he wouldn't have said nothing. He's like, treat it like it's yours. Y'all just go hunt it. Well, we're talking about, this is 2000, 2001, I guess. I carry the dozer that summer, go over there, and I make a road. It wasn't exactly on the property line, but it pretty much encompassed this whole piece of property. And I mean, I went through where the property line, the gate, there was an old gate there. It was a big cattle gate, like 16-foot metal cattle gate. And it had been like torn down. I don't know, some jackleg had torn it down. But anyway, I put new post in, put the gate back up. But as soon as you went through the gate, I pushed out just like a little opening. It was probably 30 foot. Think of a 30-foot circle where I was planning on we could pull in the gate and park.
Right.
So I had it where you could park 2 or 3 vehicles. Well, right there at that circle, I went to the right, and that would be going pretty much south. But you went just a little ways, and it was pretty level. And then you started down this hill, and this hill's probably 30 or so degree angle. And I mean, where I'm at, it's pretty mountainous. I mean, our land's just kind of land holding good land together. But anyway, I go off the hill, and it's a couple of 100 yards, and it's just this long slope down through there. And then it kind of flattens out a little bit. And there was a spot where they had drug timber up, and I guess, was loading it like what we call a bedding ground. They put a big knuckle boom loader, and that's picks the logs up and puts it on the trucks. So I clear it out, and it's probably a half acre to 3/4 of an acre. And we just made a field there, and we called that the lower field because it went off the hill to it. Well, I got it built, and then out of the kind of like the left, as you went in the field, going in it, kind of the left far corner, or kind of the left side, not really all the way in the corner, I went off out of there and it was hardwood from there to the river. Well, you went off another little hill about probably 20 yards, and it just flattened out, and then it went right up to the edge of the river. And I just turned and went down the river. The river going down through there as I'm pushing this road, the river's about probably 15, 20 yards to my right. And I just snaked that dozer around through there. And when I got nearly to the other corner of this 40 acres, which is, 1/4 of a mile, I turned the dozer and went up the hill and went back up into the far side of this property, and it leveled out. And I went, it was probably 100 someplace, 150 yards from the hardwood timber that the timber company had to leave on the slope on that part because it was so steep for erosion and stuff. They couldn't cut it. But I came through that cutover, and I made a big field up there on top of this hill. And I say up on top of the mountain, we called that the upper. We had the upper field and the lower field. Had 2 green fields. And if you were looking at like y'all were looking at me at this picture, the lower field was down here, and then the upper field is, it's up on kind of the other corner, like up here. So we wound up, had 2 fields, and had a road that's made a pretty much a complete, nearly a square / circle around the property. Got it all fixed up. We planted the green fields, and y'all, awesome. I'm talking about deer tracks on top of deer tracks on top of deer tracks. Crazy. And, our bow season came in October 15th. We had this new property set up. I'm going over there, and I'm looking at, there's just unreal. Like, oh my God, I'm talking about there's fawn tracks, there's doe tracks, there's big doe tracks, there's buck tracks, and I'm talking about big buck tracks. If I'd went out there in that field, took my hat off, closed my eyes, and chunked my hat in that field, anywhere, any direction. I could have went and picked my hat up, and there'd been 2 to 3 deer tracks under my hat. It was unbelievable at the deer sign on this property. So we were excited. You know, we're excited. We're going to get to hunt this land. There's deer everywhere. All right, fast forward, opening day of bow season. We went over there, and matter of fact, we didn't hunt that morning. We got over there. It was, 2 or 3 hours before dark. We pull over. Dad's with me, and Dad was on up in age. He was on up there. I'd have to calculate up. He was born in Daddy was born in 38, but anyway, he's on up late 60s or so, I guess. And we get over there, and I was gonna let him walk out to the upper field, because from the gate out, it was about 200 yards and just level walking. He was going out there, and I was going to have to hoof it down this hill to this lower field. Well, he goes up there, and I go to the bottom field, and y'all, it's quiet that evening. Weather was great. I'm thinking, okay, it's getting down close to dark. Where's these deer at? In both fields, y'all. It wasn't just one field. Both fields was covered up in tracks. I'm thinking, well, there's going to be deer out. Maybe they're just not stirring yet. It's a little bit warmer. Here in Alabama, October 15th, you may be sitting up there swatting mosquitoes with a baseball bat. But anyway, I get down there and I'm thinking, okay, well, they'll be here in a minute. Sure as God, there's going to be some deer coming here. Maybe they're going to wait right at dark. And I'm sitting up there waiting on deer to come in. Guys, it wasn't 10 minutes before dark. It was shortly before dark. Right out the end of the field from where I'm sitting, the stand's about 75, 80 yards from the far end. I'm on one end, the field stretches down. Then you go in the woods, and then it goes off this hill, which was about probably 70 or so yards down to the water from the end of the field. Just out the end of the field, just over the crown of this hill. It couldn't have been 30, 40 yards or so out of the end of the field. I hear the most horrendous. It sounds like 2 pieces of 2x12 lumber. I'm talking about like yellow pine dry lumber. Pow, pow, pow. And I'm just like, what in the heck was that? First thing I think, there's some moron coming off of this adjoining property or the government land, and they're down there beating on something. And I'm like, oh my God, because I'm thinking there's nothing, well, there goes my deer hunt. There's some moron out here at the end of the field. He's beating on a tree. I don't know what in the world's going on. So I'm sitting up there all pissed off trying to figure out what's happening. And I sit there for a few more minutes, and I gather my crap up, and down the ladder stand I come. Start walking out, get up there to the truck. I'm waiting on Dad. He comes, walks up. I'm like, did you see anything? He said, no, I didn't see anything. He said, did you? I said, no. He said, well, I knew you wasn't going to see nothing. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you was down there. I said, what in the hell was you beating on? I said, I wasn't beating on nothing. I said, there's some moron out the end of the field right there. I said, I don't know what he's doing. I said, my God. I said, but you heard it? He said, yeah, I heard it. Said it echoed up across that cutover in that thicket. He said, I thought you had something where you stand. You figured out you wasn't right, or you was doing something to it. He said, my God, said that was loud. I said, you ever been down there where I was? I said, I don't know who's down here, but I'm going to figure out. We got my truck, and this road that where we'd parked, it dead ended at the lake, but it was on down probably a quarter, half a mile on down, and it actually cut through the government land and went to another small piece of private land that was kind of a tag off of some private land across. They had a little corner of their land come across the lake. We drove down there, wasn't nobody there. I mean, not a soul. There's no vehicle. There's nothing. So, I mean, we was puzzled. I couldn't figure out where these people come from that was down there beating on something in the woods. And that was my first thing, y'all. I mean, that was the first thing that happened. But I mean, we was chalking all this stuff up to, we was getting harassed by somebody, and I thought, well, maybe somebody been in here hunting this. they didn't, they saw we were in here and had this fixed up now, and maybe they was mad and trying to run us off. I didn't know what was going on. So, but yeah, that's kind of my first step off into these things. Was that right there was the tree knocks. We didn't know what was going on. We was oblivious. I mean, oblivious to anything. But the first few years, it was tree knocks, and then we got to hearing whoops. These things they'd come in there, and you'd hear something walking around you. You'd hear it walking. It sound like a person, but you could tell it was heavy. It was bipedal. It'd walk around. It wouldn't come out where you could see it. Never wouldn't show itself. But it'd walk around, and guys, I've had these things up. When I say right on top of me, I'm talking about right on top of me, be within 25, 30 feet, walk right around you. But it'd be in that thick stuff, and I mean, you couldn't see 3 foot in it. These things breaking limbs sound like something big as a cow, but it was on 2 feet. It'd break limbs, go around you. They'd get out there. I've had them get up, be 15, 20 yards and whoop, like WHOOP, whoop. And I'm not doing that justice, because it sounded like their lungs was big as 55-gallon drum. And they'd whoop, and it hurt your ears. And I'm trying to figure out what in the hell is over here in these woods. And like I said, y'all see how my computer skills are 2023. Well, let's back her on up there about 2000. I mean, I have no way to find out nothing. They wasn't all this information on the internet and stuff. I mean, we was trying to put this together, going into it blind. I was like Ray Charles trying to find a needle in a haystack. Well, I finally find a few things, and I'm starting to read, and I'm thinking about what spurred it off for me to kind of really go, let's look in this direction. There was a guy that went to church with us. He was a security guard over here at a neighboring town about 17, 18 miles away. Right up here between my man cave where I'm sitting and the road into this property. You cross a bridge right here where I'm at, and you're going up the hill, and you hit what we call an S curve. Well, this guy, he was a security guard. He was a night watchman at a factory over here. He was coming home. He'd got off work at like 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 shift change for the other guard to come in. Well, he leaves, and he's coming home, and he comes around these curves in the dark, rounds a curve. Everybody said, man, you need to talk to him. Said, he's seen a darn booger man. Well, I'm like, what are y'all talking about? He's seen a dadgum Bigfoot. And I'm like, what? Said, yeah, he's seen a Bigfoot over there. Said, right over where y'all hunt. So I talked to him. Well, yeah, that's pretty much what happened. He rounded the curve, and his headlights hit it. This thing was like kind of crouched or squatted on the side of this 2-lane U.S. highway, big highway. He comes around the curve, headlights hit it, and the thing stands up. This long stride walks across the road, and it turns its upper torso and looks at his truck. I'm pretty sure that the encounter is on the BFRO website. It walks across, goes in the woods. Look, this guy was an avid hunter, avid fisherman. Woods all the time his whole life. And then he was probably 60. It scared this guy so bad, he drove home, which is about another probably 8, 9 miles from here. He went home, run in his house, got his 12-gauge shotgun, loaded it with buckshot, and sat in his house for a day and a half. It absolutely scared the man to death. He wouldn't talk about it to just anybody, just only a couple of his close friends, and then the word kind of got out. And then I start going, I wonder if this is what I'm dealing with, and that kind of got me from there.
Did you go talk to him? Did you actually talk to him?
Yeah, I talked to him, and he told me what he saw. He sure did. He told me what he saw, and that pretty much what I just told y'all. He rounded the curve, and here this thing was, and it, dude, he was freaked out. I mean, horribly freaked out by it. But guess what? As time rolled on, I started hearing other things. I started paying attention when I didn't just dismiss that stuff like used to. And that, that kind of put me in the route of this is where I need to be looking. Okay, is this what's happening to me? And then it was whoops and whistles and tree knocks. And then, after a while, we started having deer stole. We killed a bunch of deer. Dude, I killed a lot of deer over here on this property. I mean, lots of deer. We killed some good deer on that property. Matter of fact, this over here, I've got some of where I'm sitting right now. I've got, hold on a second. I don't know if y'all be able to see this or not. And
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is some of my cool stuff that's hanging on the walls. I mean, there's 11 point and 10 point and some nice 8s. And I think I looked the other day, I think I got 32 sets of horns that's hanging up just in this room. And this is just in my man cave, guys. I don't know if you see,
Oh yeah.
You see them?
Uh-huh.
But anyway, so I mean, look, I usually don't have much problem whacking and stacking deer if that's what we need to do. Right here in my kitchen, the kitchen in here, there's about another 25 sets of horns in there. So I mean, I mean, this is just, I had a lot of these was piled up in one of my buildings. I finally got my man cave built and had somewhere to hang a bunch of these up. Then my big deer mounts is at my house. But my whole life, y'all, I mean, when I tell people I pretty much live in the woods, I grew up right here at this national forest, and my dad was an avid hunter and avid fisherman. And, I've just spent my whole life being an outdoors guy. And we just, that's just kind of my life, y'all. And I mean, like I said, I dealt with this for several years. And then I finally saw one. When I saw that thing cross the road, broad daylight, it was 11:30 during the day, January 29th, 2009. And the thing stepped out. It stepped out of the trees. And I thought it was a hunter. I mean, I thought it's so far away from me, it's 275, 300 yards. It steps out, and it's just, I see its side profile. It just steps out. And the first thing pops in my mind is, well, damn it. Here I'm having to work, and this son of a gun's hunting. He's over there hunting, and, it kind of pissed me off just instantly. Well, about the time that thought registered in my brain, the thing turns, and when he turns, he's facing me. He squares up. He turns just from sideways. He turns in his whole body, and his arms kind of like it looked like his knees bow out, and he just drops just like straight down, just whoop, and compresses, but his arms flail out, and he's like his elbows go out to the side, and his knees kind of go out, and like he drops, and he's looking straight at me. And when it does that, I said, I'm like, oh shit. And the things, and when it done it, what it put me in mind of is like, it's like it stepped out, and it turns, or like I guess it heard my truck. I don't know. It's like it turns to face me, and it like drops, like, oh shit, I'm caught. And then it like turns completely and takes a step to go back the way it went back, just to go back in the woods. And it hesitates. And it's like, oh shit, hell, I can make it. And the thing pivots, it spins back on that one leg again. And when it does, it launches. And when I say launch, if you've not seen one of these things move, there's no way I can do it justice to explain what I saw. This thing pivots back, and it kicks off of one leg, and it launches. And I'm talking about it launches up like it's the pine trees, and it's flat, the side of the road down in kind of like a ditch bottom. It's not a ditch. It just goes like, if you walk straight out of the woods, level ground, and then you walk up to where this thing was at the edge of the timber, you had probably, I don't know, 20 or so feet. And it was like it wouldn't have been that far. It was the flat part from the trees over. It was maybe 10 feet, I guess. But it's standing on this flat spot. But then the bank of the road was elevated. The road's up here, and then it slopes down this bank, and it's flat, but it steps out in the flat. And it does that, like I said, it looks at me, crouches, starts to go back, and then whirls. and this thing kicks off 1 foot, and it launches up onto the road, and it lands on the highway on 2 legs. Now it's on 2 legs the whole time I've seen it. It's not on all 4s. It looked like a cartoon, or you were looking at CGI. It looked like, some of the Avengers with special superpowers. This thing launches, and it goes. Now the road elevation is probably between 5 and 6 feet above where this thing was standing, and it's sloped, like probably a 35, 40 degree slope. Just, it slopes down, and it goes from down here to up here. We're talking, it went horizontal at least 20 feet, vertical 5 feet in one step. And it did that from standing dead still. This thing lands on the asphalt, and it runs across the road, and it's just so, and it's not like if you watch a runner and you'll see them kind of doop. No, it's just like this, just smooth. When it gets to the other side of the road, it just like its stride gets a little bit bigger, and it leaps a ditch on that side. Now it's not a deep ditch, but from the asphalt surface to the dirt on the other side of the ditch, you had an elevation of probably a couple of feet, and it's 10, 12 feet. That thing, just like its stride, just got a little bit bigger, and it just whipped and it crossed that ditch like nothing. Then it runs, there's a power line right away that runs parallel with the road. So now after it's crossed the road and jumped the ditch, it's crossing under a power line. Well, they had bush hogged the right of way with their big tractors, the state, county, whatever. They had bush hogged the sides of the road, and they had bush hogged that under those power lines. Well, there was a guiding wire that went from a power pole, and it come down at an angle, and it's got the anchor in the ground. Or they had bush hogged around that anchor. They couldn't cut right up to it. And of course, they wasn't going to get out there with a weed eater and cut it. But there was a privet hedge that went up, and it bushed out real big. And this privet hedge at the top was probably like if you took a car and stood it up, it's that big around. But that booger ran between the power pole itself and the anchor and the privet hedge. It ran by it. And when it ran really close to it, I had something to gauge the height of it, because it ran really close to that privet hedge, and the privet hedge was on behind it. So it silhouettes it. I've got something to look at. Well, then it crosses through this mowed grass, and then it goes through blackberry briars. And I'm talking about blackberry briars up to like my chin, just like solid. And these things, anybody that ain't never got to play in blackberry briars, especially in Alabama, they're horrible. They will pretty much cut your clothes off if you try to go through them. And they grow up, and then they fall just hodgepodge this way, that way, and they intertwine. And you can't hardly go through them on a 4-wheeler without them pulling you off the 4-wheeler, and it'll actually bog the 4-wheeler down. It'll sit there and spin. It'll catch the front end of it, and you can't break them. Well, this thing goes through those briars like they're not there. I'm talking about it plows through them, and through the upper part of the briars, I can see the thing's thighs, and it's going through the briars, runs through them, and it's amazing. Excuse me. Anyway, that thing goes probably another 40, 50 feet through the briars. And guys, when it first stepped out, I done dealt with all this, just dealing with this, and I'm like, look, this has got to be a Bigfoot. This has got to be a Bigfoot. It's harassing us. It's coming in around us, just stealing my deer. But I couldn't see one. I could not see one. Which, another thing too, guys, let me interject this in there, and I'll go back and tell you about it. On my cousin's land across the river, we got a picture. I took a picture of a footprint in a deep hollow on a branch, and I'll tell you about that. That was another piece of the puzzle that threw me after the guy that we went to church with told me about his sighting. This all adds up. But anyway, we went back after I saw this thing, and like I said, when I first saw it, all this had built up. I mean, it was like a powder keg, just needed a spark to set me off. I throw both hands. I got one hand on the steering wheel. I'm driving. I see it. All this is happening. But as soon as I figure out, oh my God, there he is. I have put my other hand. I've got two hands on the steering wheel. I pull myself up to the steering wheel and I'm looking over it through the windshield and I am screaming. And I'm screaming the words at the windshield. I see you, you son of a bitch. I see you. I see you, son of a bitch. I see you, you son of a bitch. I see you. I'm screaming hard as I can scream. And I'm watching all this unfold. This thing's traversing across this. And he didn't go straight across. The thing, when he crossed, he was angling from my, say, further away on my right, angling closer to me on my left. He's crossing kind of diagonal. So it made the distance he traveled a whole lot further. Guys, the thing was jet black. I'm talking about, look around your house. Anything you find black won't be as black as this thing was. He was blacker than ink, and it was shiny. It wasn't nasty and dirty and dingy colored. But the way the light was hitting this thing when it crossed. Anybody that grew up in the country, if you see, or just anywhere, you take a black lab, or you take a black Brahma bull. They're real healthy. Their hair's, the coat's nice and got a sheen to it. You get them where the light's hitting them, and you watch that black lab, or you watch that bull or whatever, something that's real black covering hair. When it moves and the light hits it just right, it makes it change colors. It'll go to a gray or silver looking. When this thing jumped up in the road and it was crossing, I could see its biceps flex. I could see it's like its muscles like change. It was like it was changing colors all over its body. And I was seeing the muscles bulge on its thighs. It's around its buttocks. I could see it was like it was super black, but it was gray. It would be gray and silver, and it was like changing. Y'all, this thing was massive, massive. We went back, measured it, and it was like 10'2" or 10'4". I've got all this rope down, but this is off the top of my head. It was a little over 10 feet to the top of that bush, that privet hedge that it ran really close to. Judging by that, this thing had to be between 8.5 feet tall. And by the different angles that I saw of it, it had to be 4 feet wide from shoulder to outside of shoulder, 4 feet wide. And from its chest to its backbone had to be a minimum of 2 feet. It had to be 2 feet thick. Now, people talk about, and I've tried to tell people this, people talk about, well, I seen one and it was shaped like a V, you know, it was like a bodybuilder and it had narrow waist and da 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 da. No, there was nothing narrow on this thing. Nothing. And matter of fact, the other ones that I've seen, there was nothing narrow on them either. How long do I think the encounter lasted? There we go with Bama. I've tried to recount it. From the time it came out, I mean, and that's what I tell people. People have seen them. You don't know if it's like fast forward and slow motion all at one time. I think it's because of such a sensory overload. I've tried to, in my mind, play it over, and I'm going to guess probably between 12 and 20 seconds. I mean, because it stepped out. I mean, I've tried to talk it through it, but it's, it's going, it's crazy. I mean, you're seeing something that ain't supposed to be real, and here it is right on top of you, and you're looking at it, and you're realizing the whole world's just changed for you. It's mind altering, but it was absolutely, I think that's probably one of the things, if I'd just been oblivious to it, but I mean, this was consuming me before I ever saw one. And I was trying to figure out what was the deal in my life was that, I'm having to put up with this. I mean, we've done had, you over here, you kill a deer, you're hunting on this property. you shoot a deer and you walk over and you lay hands on it. You pick its head up. You look at its horns and you lay it back down. You leave it. There's no way for another person to get in there to this property without, to go through the thicket to get where I was. I might as well have been in a locked building. I mean, there wasn't nobody, a person going to get in there to where I was hunting, kill this deer, and I walk out, gone 10 minutes, go get my truck, pull back in there, back up where this deer was laying, and it's gone. It's like, where did my deer go? They didn't nothing drag it off.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd have deer that, we've had 6 stole in the last 10 years. I mean, and I'm not talking about deer that we shot, they ran off, and then we'd follow a blood trail and find a pool of blood big as a recliner. I ain't talking about them. I'm talking about deer that we walked up. They were dead. You walk up, kick them. You walk up, lay hands on them. You leave that deer and go get a vehicle, an ATV, to drag it out of the woods. Odds are it may not be there when you get back. So, I mean, it was kind of like the fact of, they hear a gunshot. Hey, well, let's go see if we can get an easy meal. I mean, it's went on like that for years. Kind of our golden rule now. If we're over there and we got, more than one of us that's hunting, like if I kill a deer, I'm calling, oh wow, and y'all look at those other episodes. My buddy Al, matter of fact, he's just sent me a message, popped on my phone. He'd been up here for 3 days. He come up Thursday night from Birmingham. But anyway, I'd call Al. I was like, hey buddy, I guess you heard me shoot. I got one down. How about bringing a vehicle? Or if he shoots one, I'll be like, hey, just keep out. Can you see it? Yeah, it's piled up out here. I'll be there in a minute. We'll just go and load it. We'll keep somebody in sight of that deer, because if you stay there with it, they won't get it. But I ain't had one try to get one while I was there with it anyway. But sometimes I have to leave one. Matter of fact, Spencer, that you was talking about the big one I killed this year. But I mean, that's the biggest deer I've ever killed, and he's a dang nice one. I mean, he's 24-inch spread. And I'm sitting there in the field looking at him, shot him 160 yards. But I was over there by myself because it's through the week and I'd got done to work early. You don't know what the struggle was. I only had to walk across the field to go get my Jeep. I had to walk about 90 yards, but I could see back that 160 yards where the buck was laying. He's out. He's probably 75 yards from any wood line. He's in this other piece of property, but he's just, I mean, I'm a mile from where we was at, probably a mile and a quarter from where that other property is. So, I mean, I'm not far. I mean, we have booger stuff over here anyway, right where I killed him.
How many times did you turn around and look to check and make sure the deer was still there while you were walking out to get the truck?
I nearly fell on my face about 4 times because I walked with my head turned backwards, looking at the deer, and I had to go about probably 30 yards into the woods where I couldn't see him to get in my Jeep to get it down a hill. Dude, I was speed walking trying to get in that Jeep because I'm like, oh my God, they better not get that deer. I'm fixing to kill all of them if they get my deer. But then I had to get a buddy of mine to come help me load him. But yeah, I mean, this is just, like I said, I didn't go looking for these things. These things, they kind of intruded in my life. And, I get thinking about it, that life was a whole lot simpler and a whole lot easier on me when I was oblivious to what was going on. I mean, I absolutely, I didn't used to worry about, hey, am I going to go in the woods and not come back home? Is something going to snatch me up, and pop my head off like a pest dispenser? I wasn't worried about that. I mean, I grew up in the woods, dude. I mean,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I spent lots of times. There was times when Dad and I hunted in, when I'm talking about a kid. I mean, I killed my first deer at 4 years old. By the time I was 10, Dad and I, we were hunting in South Alabama. Dad would kill around 20 deer a year himself. I was killing 15, 16. I mean, we'd kill 30-something deer a year, just he and I. I mean, I wasn't worried about no booger man. There wasn't nothing in the woods that I was worried about, because guess what? I'm talking a high-powered rifle. I wasn't scared because I've been right here. I'm talking about where I'm at. been really worried that I'm not gonna make it home. I'm not gonna make it out of the woods. People are gonna wonder where I went to. I've had these things come in and be belligerent, throwing fits, bluff charge. Plumb down out of your stand as soon as you hit the ground, sounds like the whole world unravels. The thing runs at you, you're thinking it's gone, and it's tearing the woods up. You run out in the field, spin around and point a high-powered rifle, semi-automatic 30-06, and it's the very second you point that rifle where this thing's coming, it stops. But it's right on the edge of the woods, it won't step out. And it starts tearing the woods up, thrashing the trees and the bushes and popping limbs, and it's huffing and grunting and growling, and then it goes to beating its chest, and you can hear it, and you're trying to get to the truck, and you've got 200 plus yards that you've got to go through this thicket to get back to your vehicle, and it's right at dark. I'm talking about dark, and you're over by yourself. I mean, it's life altering. I'm talking about it will change you. That's why I try to tell people. I mean, it's great. I know people love going out and going Bigfooting, and they have benign encounters. It may be here wood knocks, or they come up and throw stuff at them and this and that. I'm telling y'all, these things, for some, they're different. I mean, it's different areas and this and that. But these things over here was bound to determine that they was going to run us off. I mean, they were, a lot of it wasn't good encounters.
Well, I've got a question. Okay. The first one that you seen when you said it came out, male or female? And was the whole face hairy, not hairy, the chest?
Okay. And back on like some of the other episodes where I told this, when this thing first stepped out, I couldn't tell. And I still don't know, as far as, because I'm in a truck and I'm 300 or so yards. I come over, but the thing was damn big, and it's safari. It's not registering. That's why I thought it was a person.
Yeah.
Because I'm so far away, and I'm going that way at 38, 40 mile an hour, and the whole thing happened, and I still can't tell you. I think it was a male, but as far as me seeing genitalia, and I never was close enough to see facial features. Now, I mean, I got a real good look, and like I said, I could see muscles, but as far as like me telling you about the mouth, the nose, the eyes, no, I didn't get close enough to see detail. And that's what, anybody's listened to my stuff for years, I'd have nightmares when these things would come in and do something crazy.
Yeah.
I would have night terrors. I'm talking about wake up, my heart pounding. I mean, I would have nightmares. Anything these things was picking me up, pulling my arms off, just picking me up by the throat, holding me up, just shaking me. They'd chase me through the woods in my nightmares. And the crazy thing about it, I've had nightmares where like I could see its body, the thing like grab me by the throat, pick me up, and my eyes would come up its body. When it would get to its face, it was like a blur. And that's so crazy. Not one nightmare did I have that I had that I could see its face. And that's, I know that sounds just absolutely just stupid, but it was like every nightmare I had with these things, and I had many. The damn thing's face would be just like you took like a melted crayon and it was just like a blur. But now I could see in my nightmares, I could see its biceps, I could see its arms, its hair, but the face was always blurred out. And I know that sounds just absolutely ridiculous, but it's like my mind refused to fill in the blank. It was weird, and it's always been that way. Every nightmare I ever had. But it just, I do not, like I said, best I could tell, what I saw was a male. I didn't see any genitalia, it wasn't Ron Jeremy jumping across the woods or nothing, but I didn't really notice like big breast. I mean that, like boobs hanging down or nothing. But now this thing went back on what I got, and y'all, I'm the world's worst. I need y'all to herd me better, because I I jump off on rabbit holes and forks in the road, like looking like a V, looking like this. It's waist down to a V. Y'all, what I saw, no, it didn't. It didn't narrow down. This thing stayed super huge chest. And it didn't have no pot belly. It pot belly. It didn't look like Santa Claus waddling across. But this thing stayed big. The whole torso, like it stayed the same size, and it had like its rump, its buttocks. I mean, it's like it was. It didn't have just a badonkadonk, but it damn sure didn't narrow down at the waist. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
let me go back, and because there's so much to cover with someone like you. That's
look,
don't get on my channel and start. Do I do it to you? But there's so much to cover with someone like you that's had, these experiences over years. But I want to point out a couple things that you say, and then I want to hit some of your other things that happen. First of all, let me go ahead and point out you knew Tal Bronco, right?
Oh yeah, yes sir. That old man's got a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I sure would like to get an actual physical copy of his book. If you have not read Tal Bronco's book, what's it called? Southern. Don't make me have to look it up.
It's Southern Bigfoot. Spencer, I'm ashamed because look, my encounters, Dad's encounters, and my copy of the book's in my gun safe, and it's autographed. I mean, he autographed it and put it in there, wrote me and Dad a little thing and autographed it. But yeah,
it's a good book. It's well worth reading. In fact, Greg's stuff is in there. So is Mark Green. Some of Mark Green's stuff, and there's a bunch like in that Alabama area. Right there in between central Alabama all the way up to Bankhead. But let me point out a couple things, if it's okay with you, of what you've already said. And of course, I've talked to you about some of this stuff, and you've given other interviews on some of this stuff, so people can go back and look at this. But how many times have you actually seen one, like laid eyes on them? It's been more than once.
3 times.
3 times.
3 times.
Did they all look relatively the same physique wise? Were they all?
Spencer, like I said, I told y'all what the first one looked like. The second one I saw was from where, let me tell you this, from where I saw this one, due north of right here where I'm sitting, crow fly, it's probably less than 3 miles. Just guessing, it's less than 3 miles crow fly where I saw that one cross the road. The first one. The second one was down here on this hunting property. And if people pay attention to the encounter I told about the motorcycle pissing the one off, and
we're going to go over that.
All that. All right, now that's the scariest encounter I've ever had. Bar none, that was the worst. But that exact spot where I was at, where I was sitting on the ground when that one got mad about the motorcycle, previous to that, I had walked in there, go hunt, and I took just a few steps into the leaves. Well, down in the hollow, down below, between me and the lake, it sounded like, let's say you had a dog laying on the ground in some leaves, and you covered him with sticks and bushes and limbs, and he jumped up, and you'd hear just stuff flying and leaves crunching. Well, multiply that times 1,000. It sounded like you had hog-tied a Brahma bull that weighed 2,000 pounds, and you tried to bury him in a pile of leaves, and you laid limbs and sticks, and you was trying to hold him down, and then magically you could release him, and he had to explode out from under all that. That's what it sounded like. I mean, I'm slipping through there, and I'm my head's on the swivel, and I'm critiquing everything, and I came through the pine timber, and it was walking on pine straw. And now I took like one gentle step, and it crunched a little leaf, and I'll stand there for a minute, and I take just 2 or 3 steps, and it crunches leaves, me trying to ease in to get where I can hunt. And just down from me, I mean, 150 or so yards down in the bottom of this hollow, it sounded like the whole world turned over. I mean, it sounded like you had just just stuff blew everywhere, and limbs and leaves and crunching, and just all these wood sounds in this one spot. And my eyes whip to there, and I see something black, and it's huge. And the thing is like honest to God, it was like it jumped up, and the thing took off running, and it was in the bottom of the hollow, and I'm up on one side, and it's down in the bottom, and the thing runs directly away from me, and I'm watching it run up this hill through hardwood timber. And it's like I can see it, trees, I see it, I'm getting glimpses, and it's like darting, just waving, going up that hill. Y'all, you couldn't have took a professional motocross rider on the most badass motorcycle ever been made, and him go up that hill from a dead stop like that thing went up that hill. I mean, it was crazy. But I watch it run, and it's 150, 200 yards from where it started to it goes over the crown of that hill. But y'all, that thing went up that hill, and I could see its arms, I could see its legs, but all I could see was like when it come up, and then I could see its back, the back side of it. It never turned, it never done anything. It was just getting the hell away from me, and it went over that hill and went out of sight. And we're in hardwood timber the whole time. So that was a actual sighting then. Now the other one that I saw year before last, I'd have to look. Anyway, 2 years or so, right over here, right up the road, about 2 miles or so from where I'm sitting right now. I was coming back. I'd been out late at night driving back, and I drove over coming up this 2-lane highway. I wound up, come over the crown of a hill. When I did, my headlights were kind of, shining up. And then as I went over the hump and came down, the road's got a swag in it. Right in the bottom of that swag, it looked like eyeballs, big as golf balls. I mean, I guess probably not big as the driveway reflectors, but probably didn't like much. I mean, they were too red, and that's what they look like. They look like the red highway reflectors that you stick at the end of your driveway. But these things, and that thing had upper body was turned at me, and it was going across the road. When I first saw it, it was nearly exactly on the center line of the highway. And the thing made a couple of strides, and it went off an embankment, and it drops down about 6 or 8 feet. And then it's about 30 feet of just like flat, and it goes into the timber. So when my headlights hit it, my headlights were on bright, and I'm 100 yards or less, and I'm going that way about 55, 60 mile an hour. But, that whole sighting didn't last but 3 or 4 seconds, I guess. It was, my headlights hit it, and it was in the road, and it was moving, it was going. But it's like it looked at me, and its eyes looked like it was 10 inches apart, and just big. And they weren't just red. These were kind of an orangey red, but it's just the size and the reflection of its eyes. It was like a deer's eyes, but they were like between a deep orange and a red. But, it was solid black covered in hair. I mean, it was big. It was massive. It basically looked like the one that I saw the first time. Now, if I saw the same one, I can't tell you. Did they look alike? Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, but I do know there's way more than one here.
Oh yeah. My point being is that 3 times now you physically witnessed a physical creature.
Yeah.
To some degree. Now twice now you've actually seen it like move and go across the road.
Yep.
But at the same time, and I'm not trying to get into the woo thing on this episode, but what I'm saying is 3 times you've seen a very similar creature that was apparently flesh and blood, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
You've seen it move physically, took off super fast, hit the woods, and disappeared on you. Have you ever, just quickly, have you ever seen one disappear or vanish into thin air or anything
No,
like that?
no, I've never seen one like, just dematerialize
Right.
or materialize. Nothing like that. I haven't, but I have seen them do a lot of things that I
Well,
can't
that's
explain.
you've had them. You said earlier, and you and I have talked about this quite a bit. You've had them 25, 30 feet away from you where you can tell that they're there. You can hear them. You know that they're there, but you're looking for them and can't see them.
Now, I've had that. Yes, sir. I sure have.
How do
I've
you?
had that where it that I couldn't get it in my head because I could hear them, and maybe a few of the times it would be like a little gap in the bushes or gap in the thicket, and I'd think, okay, if it comes across that, I've got to be able to see it, and somehow I'd get across it and I never see it. So I mean, I kind of explained that away as maybe that it was the sound made it sound like it was closer than it was or whatever. But dude, I've seen stuff that yeah, I mean, I couldn't explain because it was like, how in the world is it there, or the sound's coming from right there? I ought to be able to see something, and I couldn't see nothing. So I kept chalking that up as, maybe the sound's just playing a trick on me, but I know it's there, but I couldn't see it. So yeah, I've had several things that I couldn't explain.
A couple other things that you mentioned were you talked about the very first time you were hunting the property after you cleaned it up. Whenever you said it sounded like somebody taking 2x12s and smacking them together.
Yeah.
That was directly before it got too dark to see. Is that right?
Yeah, most of the time when we'd have anything happen, it would be right before dark. Right before dark.
Whenever that happened, and it was 3 of them, you said. So right before dark, and you hear 3 of them. Have you ever gone outside or gotten to the property and heard just like a single knock?
Yeah, I have. I've had them knock. I've had them whistle. They do different things. We got noticing that we'd pull up down there, and and what I chalked that up is they was letting the rest of them know that, hey, there's
Right.
somebody here. They're here. And on the 3 knocks, these things here, man, 90% of the time, if the first knocks you heard were close to you, you'd hear and it'd be pow, pow, pow. You give it sometimes it may not be 15 seconds, sometimes it'd be 30 seconds or so. In the distance somewhere, if you just keep listening, you'd hear a reply, and it would be 2 knocks. So and it would be spaced out just like that. It wouldn't be just pow pow. It'd be
Right.
pow, pow.
Same cadence.
Yeah, same cadence. Now
you
these
think-
things do what?
I was going to say, do you think it's possible that like a lot of the whistles, whoops, and single knocks are more like a shit, here comes a person signal,
Mhm.
whereas the right before sunset, the 2 or 3 and then getting replied with the 2 or 3 is possibly more along the lines of, okay, it's time for us to get up and go get something to eat, and let's everybody meet up. I mean, it almost seems like it has a different feel to it whenever they start out with the 2 or 3 and then they're getting the replies around.
Man, that's a good question. I mean, it may be. I mean, it absolutely may be. Like I said, dude, even as much stuff as I've had go on, every time I think I had something figured out, it'd create 3 more questions.
Right.
I think, well, I pinned this down, and then it'd be, well, maybe not.
You want to answer that one?
Yeah, no, not that I know of. I've never heard anything sound like metal or squeaking or anything like that. No, it's always been just a what I'd call a wood sound. I've never heard anything that sound like metal. And while we're on that, we'll go back and we'll just go ahead and talk about I always have people say, well, you seen any orbs? You seen any UFOs? Guys, I've never seen any unexplained lights. I've never seen any what I thought was a UFO. I've never seen anything like that. Now, I've got buddies that I trust in my life and heartbeat that I believe them with all my soul what they've seen. But I haven't. I've never seen anything like that. Nothing. I mean, nothing, no light that I ever even had a question about. So
have you seen Dog Man?
No, y'all can just keep that damn thing wherever the hell he's at. He can stay over there and I'll stay right here and we'll be just
Ain't it? Yes, I want no part of that.
No.
We got to cover the motorcycle story. And we got to cover that, and we got to cover about your dad's steer being stolen.
Yeah.
But before we do, you also mentioned the way that it turned and looked at you, and you said it moved its body, so it didn't just turn its head on its neck; it actually turned its whole upper torso.
It's like it swiveled at the waist. Yeah, it's like it swiveled. Like, tell you what it reminded me of. My grandpa and then my dad got that way, and I'm sure I'm destined that way because I've been broke up from head to toe. But like apparently all the males in my family, if they hit 70 years old, their neck stiffens up and they can't turn their head to look at nobody. You have to turn, and that's the way this thing looked. I mean, that when they turned, the two that I've seen that turned toward me, it's like you think if your neck was in a brace and you was trying to look to your right or left, you have to turn your whole body. I mean, that's the way it did, So
look here. Hold on one second. Now you show up and your very first comment is, I agree, don't want to see a Dog Man. And you are the very first one to bring up Dog Man, Debbie Jones. Very first one. Every time.
Oh, boy.
But let me touch on one last thing that you said. You said how it glistened so much whenever it was going across the road.
Yeah.
A common thing that you hear is that their skin is very oily. Like whenever they touch a window or whatnot, they leave the smudges, and sometimes the smudges are even hard to get off. Do you think, because I mean, you've seen it 3 times, I haven't. Do you think it's possible that they're oily and that the light reflecting off of it? I mean, I can certainly see, like you said, like if you take a horse or a cow or whatever that's slicked out and hot in the sun and it's got that sheen to it, whenever it moves, it almost has like a rainbow kind of color at certain points. Do you think it's possible that, the oil sheen on them is making them look like they're, maybe a lot of people, whenever they say that these things disappear or these things have, maybe hair that reflects the light so that you can't see them when you're looking at them. Do you think it's possible that maybe just the light bounces off of them kind of at a funny angle because of having greasy hair?
Man, I do not know, Spencer. That's above my pay grade. I mean, really, I don't know, because I've got, like I said, dude, I've got buddies that I trust in my life. I mean, I've confided in things in them and that I've never told anybody else, and they've told me things that they wouldn't tell anybody else. I mean, I've got one buddy. He's like my brother, and he's dealt with these things way longer than I have. And actually, I can tell you for a fact, Coonbo Baker, and everybody's gonna know Coonbo. Coonbo will tell you straight up that this other buddy of ours, he's had more encounters than Coonbo and me together, and probably 3 more people that you pile up. I mean, he's told me he's seen them be looking at one. I'm talking about like in a gap in the timber, like big open timber. He's looking at one from like 30 yards. Instead of the thing just like twinkled and went out, just was gone. So I don't know. I mean, I ain't never seen nothing like that myself, but it makes me go, well, he's got no reason to make this up. And you know, that's just some stuff that he won't share with everybody. But you know, I don't know.
For every one person that sees a physical one out in the open walking across, and they're like, oh, it was this big and it walked right in front of me and, you know, just vanished into the woods. For every one of those, though, there's another person out there that you'll get to talking to, and they sound just as legitimate, as credible as anybody else. And they will be like, I saw the damn thing disappear right in front of me. Or it'll be, you know, its eyes glue red from the inside, you know, or they'll be mind speak or whatnot. And at some point, just saying, at some point, I think we all have to admit that there's something really freaking weird going on here that we can't put our finger on. And I mean, you know, I don't really want to go into all that. I want to move on to the motorcycle story, but in your experience, everything that you've seen personally thus far, it's been a physical creature that you've actually laid eyes on, and the things that you've seen are you know, from a physical point of view, right?
Yeah, I mean, other than the most, I guess, I don't know if you call it, we ain't gonna call it the woo. The main thing with me was, you know, like I said, there's been a few times that I couldn't explain, that I couldn't see it, that I thought, okay, I'm fixing to see one. It's fixing to be. It's got a gap. You know, if it comes through right there, there's some holes in the bushes. I'm gonna see some movement, but I couldn't. I mean, I could not see the thing. So yeah, there's been a couple of times that's happened. The other main thing, Spencer, is the creepy feels. The absolute creepy feels. Like last night, you know, I talked to you earlier and told you about, or sent you the message last night. We were over here at my man cave, and I'd cooked supper, made some awesome spaghetti Alfredo with chicken. So, but anyway, I got the kitchen hot. I had one of those dastardly gas stoves cranked up, you know, the government wants to ban. I was using one of those, and I got the kitchen hot, so I guess it was detrimental to my health. I got a little hot. I was wearing a dadgum hoodie and like a dummy, and got the kitchen hot. So I opened the back door and went out on the porch toward the lake, and I walked out there to get my nicotine back up, and walked out there to cool off. And I walked out, and as soon as I opened that door and stepped out, it was just like, I mean, it would be like you stepping out on a football stadium and you feel like there's, you know, 3,000 people looking at you. It just kind of hit me, and I just eased on out and sat down on, I got a big, like a 10-foot long picnic table out here, a big one. So I just sat down on the picnic table with my back to the wall, and I'd been there. I hadn't been sitting there 30 seconds. And right out in the yard, when I say yard, it's not much of a yard. Most of it's just timber, and there's a little bit of grass out here. But there's leaves on everything, and the leaves was pretty dry. I'd been there, couldn't have been 30 seconds. And it sounded like a rock big as a golf ball. And it was done dark. Now, it'd been dark for a little while. This was probably, I'd have to look back on my phone. I guess it was probably 7 o'clock my time. But it sounded like a rock big as a golf ball. It hit the leaves, and I mean, it hit hard. And then it didn't just hit like plop, like something fell out of the tree. We're talking probably 20, 25 feet from the edge of the porch where it hit. You hear it hit, and then you hear it bounce. You know, it hit like toosh, and then you hear it. It's like rolling across the leaves. And I hear it sounds like it rolls, you know, 15 feet. And I sit there just a second, and I'm looking up, looking out that way, and a little bit of the porch lights kind of lighting up, very dimly lighting up the yard. I sit there just a minute and just to let them know, hey, yeah, I heard you. I heard the rock. I got your point. I whistled, just a soft whistle, and I went like this. I went, and which I did a little better, not my mouth's dry, but just a two-tone whistle, just a soft. Nothing else happened. I sit there about I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes, whistled again. Nothing happened. I sat out there a little bit longer. I wound up whistling, I think, 3 times. Never had nothing else happen. Nothing. Not nothing. And that's the first thing I've had in several weeks here. I mean, that was the first thing I've had happen. But definitely, it was, there's no way nothing fell out of a tree and happened, because now the yard's sloping down. And, you know, if something fell out of a tree, you would have heard it hit and like go away from me. Well, what I heard, it was like I heard it like clip a limb or two from my right. And I heard it hit nearly directly in front of me. And it was traveling from right to left. And it was across the hillside of the yard. It didn't hit and then roll down the hill. This thing was traveling. I heard it coming from the right, like tick, tick, you know, like hit a little limb or two. And then it landed out in the yard, and then it rolled across sideways, sidling across the hill. You know, something threw it out of the timber, and it hit in the yard and rolled across. So, and the last things we've had happen is, like I said, you know, it's 1.5 miles over here where I hunt. Me and my little girl, it was back into November 1st, probably it'd been Thanksgiving-ish, maybe right before. We were over there in a hunting blind or shooting house right before dark, right behind the shooting house. It couldn't have been 30 yards. It sounded like you had hooked a pickup truck to a tree limb big as the calf of your leg, and it starts snapping. I mean, it's quiet. We're watching the field. There's no deer or anything out there, and this is a big 28-acre field. But right behind us in the wood line, the shooting house is sitting right on the edge of the woods. But directly behind us in the shooting house doesn't have it. It's just a solid wall on the back. You got windows on each side and then in the front. But we're sitting in there and got all the windows open, and I hear a limb start cracking. Just snap, crack, 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 pow! Y'all, it sounded like a gun went off. I mean, it was like you were slowly bending this limb, a hardwood limb, and it starts snapping, and it keeps snapping and snapping and snapping. It starts getting louder and more frequent, the snaps. And y'all, when it broke, I'm not kidding. It sounded like it was 5-inch diameter limb. It explodes. Pow! And look, the sound was coming. We're in an elevated stand. The bottom of the floor is about 8-9 feet. The sound was coming from, like, you could tell it was a downward angle behind us, like closer to the ground. Now, I mean, what I'm saying is it wasn't like way up in the top of a tree. Right. You could tell the direction of the sound was coming, you know, our level or lower. All right, that thing breaks. And I'm talking about when it breaks, it is horrendously loud. We sit there about probably 5-6 seconds. And then you hear, it sounds like you've dropped a 200-pound log on the ground. That limb, when it hit the ground, it was like it thudded. It crunched leaves, but it had this massive thud. Well, how in the world did that limb break? Then, if it broke and exploded, why in the hell did it take it that long to hit the ground? I mean, it was like something had bent it around, broke it off, and was, in my mind, was standing there holding it and then threw it down. It was loud. All right. Then fast forward the next day, me and my little girl go back to the very same shooting house. We're in there, and right before dark, I mean, we're 10 minutes before dark or less, right behind us, but now it sounded like it was probably 75, 80 yards. We hear three wood knocks. And at the same cadence, that pow, pow, pow. And her little head, she just turns right at me, looks me right in the face. She said, "Daddy, what's that?" I said, "What do you think it was?" She says, "That Bigfoot." I said, "Yes, ma'am, it sure is." She sat there and her little lips started quivering. I said, "Baby, what is it?" She said, "Daddy, I'm scared." I said, "Baby, don't be scared." I said, "I ain't gonna let nothing hurt you. Ain't nothing gonna hurt you." I said, "You know, that was him yesterday, broke that big limb behind us." "Daddy, I thought that's what it was, but I didn't say nothing." I said, "Well, they come in here yesterday, he didn't hurt you. He ain't gonna hurt you today." I said, I'm not gonna let these things hurt you." I said, "You see that deer rifle right there?" I said, you got a deer rifle? I got a deer rifle. I said, now look, we don't want to have to shoot one, but I ain't gonna let nothing hurt you. I said, matter of fact, I got this 357 Magnum hanging right here. But y'all, it's horrible that, you know, I carry my little girl to the woods and she almost gets just petrified and terrified that them, you know, there's really a booger man like right here, which my kids have grown up, y'all. I mean, my son's 16, be 17 in May. My little girl will be 11 in April. They've grown up hearing me talk about these things, hearing my dad, their papa, talk about these things. You know, they don't pay any more attention than, as far as they don't look at it any different than they know there's deer in the woods. They know there's possums and squirrels and rabbits, and it's never been a thing for them to not believe. They've had no reason to not believe, right, because they've grown up seeing the effect it's been on us, and they know they're there. And that's the main thing, is I don't have to try to convince my kids. They've just grown up with it, with the acceptance of, you know, okay, well, these are real creatures and they're out there. But it's still, man, it broke my heart that I had, you know, when she turned at me and her eyes was big and her little lip was quivered. And I'm thinking, you know, golly, my little girl's scared. And I went pretty pissed off all at one time. You know, I was like, you know, you just don't want to see your kids scared. But we had those two encounters 2 days in a row. Then we didn't hunt for about, I guess it was maybe 3 or 4 days. Well, Alan come in. We went back over there and hunted. Me, my little girl, and Alan. Well, this field, like I said, it's a big field, 28 acres. We got 2 shooting houses on the same field to cover the whole field. They're about 300 yards apart. Well, I'd done told Alan before we got over there about mine and Abby's stuff happening, you know, a few days before. Well, me and Abby got back in that same shooting house while Al's in the other. Well, we didn't have anything happen. Well, when we go out and get Alan, he gets in the truck. He's like, yep, Booger Man's here. I said, what are you talking about? He said, that son of a gun come in before dark. Said, it's probably 15 minutes before dark. Said it come up behind the shooting house, said probably 50, 60 yards back there. And he said, son of a gun got to whistling. I said, he got to whistling. He said, yeah. Said, that same old monotone whistle we've heard so many times. Said it whistled. I said, well, what'd you do? He said, I whistled back at it. I said, what did it do? He said, it whistled back at me. I said, how many times did you whistle? He said, probably 7, 8 different times. He said, plumb that got dark. He said, I'd whistle and it'd whistle. He said, then it moved around. He said, it just kind of like a half circle around the shooting house coming around. He said, got a little concerned before you head this way. He said, thing got up pretty good bit closer and said, I'd whistle and it'd whistle. So they were whistling back and forth to each other. But you know, and then after that, we didn't have nothing happen for weeks, several weeks. But we had those 3 encounters in less than a week. And that's the way they'll do, y'all. I mean, I say they're here all the time, but it's like they're here and then they're gone for a few days. We may go a week, nothing happened. We may go a month and nothing happened. And then we may have something happen every day for 3 or 4 days in a row. It's like they'll be here and we'll have stuff, interaction, and then they're gone. And then you don't never know when it's going to happen. There's no rhyme or reason to it.
We got to cover the motorcycle story.
Oh, man.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite.
When I tell that, it just nearly, I mean, it's horrible. I mean, I can't even remotely do it justice to the feelings that I had that day. And people really, I mean, I'm gonna go over it. I'm gonna tell it, and I'll tell it as close to as it happened as I can. I always tell people, look, I'm afraid I'm gonna butcher it, and there's no way I can do it justice. I wish like heck that Alan was here to tell his part that he saw or heard, because a matter of fact, dude, we talk about that. We'll be going down the road. and it'll just hit him. He'll say, you know, reckon that man, that motorcycle, reckon he's still over there. I said, well, I'm sure he probably is. I mean, I figure there's nothing in the woods going to take him out. Cause honest to God, y'all, I think that was the alpha. I think that was the prime alpha male. Cause he was, y'all, it's horrible. But I mean, we talk about it all the time, and that's what we were laughing about just like day before yesterday. I said, you know, I've told these people on these podcasts, and I said, they really don't grasp the levity of how bad that was. And I said, you know, when I told them that when we drove out of there that we fully expected, would not been surprised in any way, shape, form, or fashion if we'd found some dude that was like shredded limb from limb, dangling up, you know, his torso up 40 foot in a tree, and a twisted up motorcycle 30 foot in another tree. I mean, if we'd came out and found a big bloody spot and a twisted up motorcycle, that's what, honest to God, that's what Al and I both, what we was talking about, that's kind of what we expected. We was kind of I ain't gonna say let down, but we were astonished that wasn't the scene that we found. We thought that, honest to God, that's what we thought we was going to find when we got back to the road. It just, that thing was so upset, y'all. I mean, I can't explain the level of rage that this thing had. And I cannot imagine, that's what terrified me so bad, was I was going to be the first thing that this thing saw in those woods that was out of place, that he didn't want there. And this thing is worked up in such a frenzy. Y'all, I mean, terrified. I cannot. That's as scared, or probably the most scared of anything that I've ever had happen in my life. Y'all, I've been shot at. I've rolled around in the ditch with folks fighting. Was trying to put people in handcuffs. Y'all, I mean, I've never had nothing. I mean, going in doing raids and warrants, and I ain't never had nothing scare me like that did. Never, not one time. I, honest to God, thought I'm fixing to have to kill this thing, or I'm gonna have to try to, because it's fixing to try to kill me. It was when I say annihilating the woods, you couldn't take a bobcat skid steer and break limbs any bigger than what that thing was breaking. That's what it sounded like, a piece of machinery, like you deleted the motor noise. If you could just go in and do a trick on a computer and delete the motor noise and have it breaking limbs and snapping and crunching leaves and stomping the ground. And my God, this thing, y'all, it sounded like you had a 2,000-pound bull, and it was trying to destroy a cage, but the cage was made out of wood. Stuff popping and snapping, and I'm looking, and I'm seeing the tree, the dogwood tree thrash. But anyway, we gave him a taser on it. Let me just, I guess I can start from the top. Anyway, we're Al and I hunted and had, you know, most of my encounters. The deer had been going around the field, the upper field. They weren't coming through the thicket. They were going through the hardwoods. And I told Al, I said, look, you want to go hunt that stand, go get in the upper stand. He said, you go on the bottom stand. I said, no, I'm gonna go out here. I'm gonna go up this log road. And there's an old log road on the edge of the government property at the property line. And it was an old house place back in there where you had big pine timber for 100 or so yards from the log road. You walk through the big pine timber. And when I say big, I'm talking about pines that it'd take two people to reach around, you know, to hold each other's hand to reach around them. But you went about 100 yards or so. And as you're walking down this road, you're going, all these big pines are being on my left. To the right is this thicket that my cousin owned. Well, you walk about 100 yards. You got the thicket on your right, the big pines on your left, and you walk through that pine thicket, and it pops out into the big hardwoods. Well, when you hit the hardwoods, I was going to go just about 25, 30 yards, and it was going to round over the hill where I could see really good. I was going to get a little further down where I could see the bottom of that holler where I talked about the one that I heard get up, and I seen it run up the hill. Well, I was going to go, instead of like where I could just barely see that, I was going to ease further down because the deer were coming. I didn't want to set up right where they were walking through, and I wanted to be able to see that other hillside and that other ridge. So I eased on down a little further. All right, so I'm 30 or so yards, give or take. And I find there's a big pine out there in the hardwoods, and I thought, well, I'll clean it out on the ground, and I'm gonna just set on the ground. But there was a lot of leaves, so I rake out big as a car hood, a clear spot, just where I can sit down, I can stand up. It's nothing but dirt. I'm not gonna make any racket. I got this big pine that two people couldn't reach around out in these hardwoods. I'm gonna sit right here by it. I can lean back on it. I'm gonna sit till dark. You know, this is a couple of 2.5 hours before dark. I'm in there. I'm set up. I'm sitting there, and it's probably 30 minutes before dark or so, I guess. I can't remember now because it's been several years ago. But anyway, I'm sitting in there, and it's done starting, you know, it's not going to be long. It's going to start getting pretty dim in these woods because it gets darker in the woods on account of the trees and stuff before we're out there in the field. I'm sitting there, and I'm got my back to this, got my Browning 30-06 semi-auto laying in my lap. And I'm just, you know, cutting my eyes and looking around. Well, behind me is over my left shoulder is the road that I came in on, the log road. The big hardwood or the big pine timber is, you know, say 30 yards from me, or maybe 35 or so. It's not far. It's right there. Well, back on past there is a mile and a quarter or so crow fly to the main road, the pavement. Well, I'm sitting there, and I hadn't saw any deer, didn't hear any deer. And out of the blue, back up on the highway, it sounds like somebody's working on a motorcycle. It sounds like the motorcycle is not running right, and they're revving it up. What it put me in mind of was that the thing was flooding, like the carburetor wasn't working right, and they were revving it up, trying to clean some of the gas out of the bowl, maybe, you know, make it burn some gas out, whatever. But this motorcycle is revving up, and it's loud. I'm talking about loud. It's just echoing down through where we're at, even from that distance. And the motorcycle would go, whoa, whoa. Well, this thing revs up like that. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, good night. You know, this thing's making all this racket, da-da-da-da. But it's just as this thing, that about the third or fourth time he revs it up like that, and he lets off just a 1 mile, 1 mile, 1 mile right over my shoulder, just inside this big timber. In the big timber, there's a lot of honeysuckle and briars and a lot of undergrowth up probably, say, 12, 14 feet high. It's just thick because it does get some light coming in there. And y'all, it sounds like the world explodes. There is the most god-awful, blood-curdling, bella, roar, yell, scream, howl. And I've never heard anything, nothing, even close on the internet, anywhere, anytime, to do it justice. This thing, it started off like kind of like a bull cow. It was like like the wintertime when I'll tell everybody, like, if you're feeding hay and the cows are hungry, an old bull they'll stretch his neck out and they'll bellow, and it'll be like, whoa, and they'll do that. It started off like that, and on the same breath of air, it was just changing, and the octave was going up and 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 going up. And this thing just kept going and going and going and going and going. But it went up into, like I said, it started off like a bull. And then it went into like a lion roaring. And then it went up into like a man screaming. And then into like a woman screaming. And it went off kind of like a wolf howl, And when it stopped, and I cannot, I don't have the words or know the words to use other than it cracked like a whip. It had nearly like a pop on the end. The way it done, it was like a whip cracking on the end when it quit. This thing was so loud that my clothes was vibrating, like my eyeballs was vibrating, my insides, my heart, my lungs. It was like you were getting slapped, like you stepped out in a gust of wind when this thing was screaming. It was like you were standing in a windstorm, the vibration hitting me. Y'all, I went from sitting on the ground to, it was like I jumped up like a spring, and I'm hiding behind this pine tree, and I've got my rifle pulled up to my shoulder, and I'm looking over the scope, and I'm hiding, and I'm peeping around this tree looking, and I'm going, oh my God, what am I going to do? Well, this thing just does this big roar, bellow, roar, scream, yell, howl, and it quits. And I hear a few limbs pop and this and that. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And y'all, just a few minutes, the motorcycle revs up again, same thing. 1 mile, 1 mile, 1 mile. It's like 3, 2, 1. This thing does the whole big deal again. Same screen. And it got, y'all, I mean, and Al and I talked about, I said, man, I don't know, because there again, it's kind of like me seeing that first one run across the road. It's such a sensory overload. It's hard to explain, or even for me to even know how long it lasted, but it just kept going and going and going and going and going and going like it ain't gonna quit. Well, y'all, this thing now, instead of just doing that, he is mad. I'm talking about, it's like you've got a coon in a cage and you're poking it, and you just keep on, and the more you poke it, the madder it gets, and the madder it gets, and you've got it worked up in just a horrible frenzy. This thing is destroying. I'm talking absolutely destroying the woods around it. It is breaking limbs. It's like it's stomping. It's like you could hear it beating its chest. It's going berserk. And it's right here. It's right on top of me within 40 yards. I can see pretty good, say 30 or so, 30, 35 yards. It's just pretty open timber. This thing is just in the thick part where those big pines are. And there's a dogwood tree. The base was as big or so as a big coffee can. This tree's 30 or so feet tall, I guess. The top of this tree is whipping. It looks like a grown man's got a sapling big around as a beer can, and you're sitting there trying to jerk it and make the top whip back and forth. I'm watching this big dogwood tree. I couldn't hook my 4-wheel drive pickup and 4-wheel drive low range with a chain more than halfway up this tree and jerk it. If my truck was on the asphalt, I couldn't make that tree jerk back and forth like this thing is shaking this tree. The top would go back and forth and back and forth, and then it'd go round and round and round and round, back and forth, back and forth. I'm hearing limbs break, limbs pop. This thing is grunting, it's huffing, it's growling. And it is, I'm talking about beyond pissed off. Finally starts calming down again. Couple of minutes. The motorcycle does it again. Cue the scream. We're going to do it again. Well, in the meantime, Al has sent me, I got my cell phone. I had a flip phone. It was in my pocket, my shirt pocket. My phone is on vibrate. It's going bzz, 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 bzz. And I turn my rifle loose, just ease my hand up and pull my phone out and flip it open. And it just had the capital letter U, space, okay, question mark. I type in, hell no, send. And then here in just a minute, it comes back and it just says ON space WAY. He was on his way. Well, he's through this thicket from me, 200 or so yards, but he can't come to me because there's no way to get through this thicket. He has to come out of the stand, go across the field, go about 200 yards, and then he's got to turn and come up to where I'm at. Well, this thing is, he's upset. Well, it gets quiet. Y'all, I'm sitting here in a panic. I'm talking about full-blown panic. I always carry my .357 Magnum under my arm. I got a Smith & Wesson holds 7 rounds. I've reached in and unbuckled the shoulder holster, where if this semi-automatic Browning 30-06, it's got 5 shells in it. If I have to run it dry, I ain't going to have time to reload. All I know to do is I'm going to swing that rifle around with my left arm, and I'm going to pull this pistol with my right hand, and I'm going to go to work with it. So I'm thinking, all right, I got 5 rounds in this 30-06. Got 7 in this pistol. I got 12 rounds I'm going to have to do something with. And I'm in my head, I'm plotting. I'm going to shoot this thing from the throat up. I mean, I'm going to try to put a pretty powerful round in its pumpkin somewhere. I'm fixing to try to, because y'all, majority of the times we dealt with these things, any encounters we'd had, when these things would leave, they'd go toward the river. They'd always leave and go toward the river. What was in my head was, this thing's here. I'm here, and the river's behind me. It's right here. And if he leaves to go toward the river, he's going to pop out in this hardwood. And I'm going to be like a sore thumb. I'm going to be in his domain, and he ain't going to be happy. And he's fixed to take all that anger, all that frustration. He's going to take it out. I can see what he's doing to the timber. You know, I ain't going to have a prayer. I ain't going to have no choice. I'm fixing to try to put every round in him I can. And I'm thinking, and honest to God, y'all, I'm thinking I'm fixing to be the dude that's going to be forced to kill one of these things. Or I'm going to have to try, or I'm going to die. I mean, I'm fixing to die right here. It got quiet for a few minutes. You know, I'm thinking, okay, Wow's on his way. My God. And I'm thinking, well, you know, I don't think it's too safe for him to be coming in here to me. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm worried about him. I'm worried about me. I'm damn sure worried about what this thing's about to do. Well, a few minutes passes, everything got quiet. And I'm sitting here looking, and I mean, I'm critiquing everything I can. I never heard this thing leave, never heard it do nothing. It just stops. And y'all, I mean, just a couple of minutes, 3 or 4 minutes at most, the motorcycle revs up again. And it's the same thing. 1 mile, about 3 times. When this thing does that same bella roar, scream howl, this thing had to be 400 yards or further from me toward the motorcycle. It's gone toward the motorcycle like, well, by God, I'll just come to you. I don't know if he took it as a challenge, because the way it would like roar, the motorcycle revving up, and the way it sounds at 1 mile, like if he thought it was some type of animal screaming at him, challenging him. Bad day, give him I don't know, give him a headache. I ain't got a clue. He just didn't like sound. But I can tell you for a fact, these things do not like loud sounds. They do not. I've heard them be set off and just go stupid. Log trucks or diesel trucks hit their engine brake, their Jake brake, and it blah, 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 blah. I've heard them scream at that. Police sirens, ambulance sirens, that touch them off. Jet airplane fly. We got some Air Force jets that'll fly through here, and when I'm talking about, they're like twice the size of the top of the timber. They'll fly through, and you'll get that behind them. That come through real low. That'll touch them off. A lot of loud sounds like that. I've heard them answer that, scream at it. But y'all, that thing had left. It had gone from right there on top of me, like it was going to that motorcycle. And y'all, I come out of them woods as quietly and as swiftly as I could. I was like, I got to get the hell out of here. And I took off, and I went up through that, and I'll use the analogy y'all hear me say it on other times. Honest to God, because I'm 74 model and grew up watching Fred Flintstone. When Fred jumped up on his little tippy toes and that's the way I felt like I was going out. I mean, I was trying to go out as as quietly and as quickly as I could. And when I got out the 100 and so yards out back to the gravel log road, by the time I got there, I looked, and there a while was. He had his rifle up under his shoulder with a barrel pointing down. And he looked at me, he said, are you all right? I said, nope. He said, well, he said, you all right? And I said, no. I said, I'll be okay, but I'm not all right now. We walked back down that log road. He walks with me and him walk side by side, and we get to my truck. I open the door and like stick the barrel of my gun in the, either laid it in the seat or stuck in the floorboard and leaned it on the seat, but I put my gun in. I stand there with the door open. He said, you're white as a sheet. I said, dude, I feel like it. I said, man, my adrenaline has dumped. And that's exactly what happened. My adrenaline dumped on me, and y'all, I got sick. I got totally nauseated. I had one hand in the seat and one hand on the door of the truck. I leaned over and puked. Stood there a minute, and I puked again. I puked 2 or 3 times. Puked right there between the door and the cab of the truck. He said, are you all right? I said, dude, I will be. Just give me a minute. And I was so shook up at that point. Al was arguing. We got to argue, and he was wanting to drive. He said, are you sure you can drive? I said, yeah, I'm okay now. I said, I held it together till I got out there and I saw Al. That's when it about broke me down. Everything dumped on me. And when I was in there, I mean, don't get me wrong, I was panicked, but I was still functioning, and I still knew what I was about to have to do, or what I had in my head I'm going to have to do. And I really wasn't looking forward to it. At no point in time did I want that to happen. But it's like my cousin told that guide up there in Canada, they went on bear hunting, and the guide went up, told them said, now we forgot to tell y'all, but the moose up here are in rut, and said, y'all going to be really careful. Said the moose are more dangerous than the bears. Told that guide, said, look here, Mr. Guide, said, we from down there in North Alabama, said, if I'm in the damn woods with my rifle, I ain't about to be no victim. And then the guide up there in Canada told him, said, whoa, wait a minute, said, you can't shoot a moose. Said, well, you don't even have a tag, it ain't moose season. He said, I done told you. He said, I ain't gonna get out there and get killed if I got a rifle in my hand. And they didn't even want him to hunt anymore. He had to beg and plead and get them to let them go back bear hunting. Said they had to swear that they wouldn't shoot a moose. But y'all, I mean, I'm like that. That's my theory. I refuse to be a victim.
How scary is something whenever you've got a semi-auto 30-06 and you're like, all right, I got this, and I've got a 357 mag, and I still don't know if I'm going to make it out of here. How big of a threat is that?
I'm telling you, that's on a scale of 1 to 10, it's about a 50.
Right.
Honestly, y'all, I mean, I've been law enforcement for 14 years. And I've been in some hairy stuff. I mean, last Thanksgiving was a year ago. I mean, I had a guy, me and another officer, a guy shot at us with a AR-15. That didn't bother me even remotely close to this. I mean, I've been on felony drug raids and warrants, and I ain't had nothing in my life that's had the fear in me like that I had right over here in these woods. I mean, that one's, I mean, I've been a little nervous a few times, but that one right there was the icing on the cake. That was bar none. That was the worst one. Now don't get me wrong. The other times that I've been bluff charged, the dang things knew I was there and basically like laid a trap on me and waited for me to come out of the stand. And then they'd come running, and you'd hear them crashing through the timber, running straight at me, run me out in the field. And, yeah, that they were not happy those times either. But then they'll go on there and listen to when Alan brought his friend in, and that one came up and got belligerent, and how we kind of diffused everything about the best way we could figure it out. They can listen to that. That was a little hairy that night too. I mean, I really thought we was fixing to have to shoot one in, but then after that things changed. I mean, they changed. It's like, well, they know we're here. They know what we are, and they're not going to run them off. So we might as well try to get along with them. And that's kind of the way it's been since then. So, and it was just by sheer dumb luck, accident, grace of the good Lord, whatever you want to chalk it up to. that everything changed with these things. Because like I said, y'all, we had many, many, many belligerent dealings with these things.
And again, we just, if you've gone back and you've heard a lot of Greg's interviews, he's got a lot more stuff to talk about, mostly dealing with that initial area that he hunted with his dad and Alan. And the one friend, the story that he's talking about with Alan's friend is a really good one. And I will put links at the bottom of this to the Beast shows that he did. And he did it for Big Dog T2B as well. But I'll go back and put links at the bottom of it. You really do need to go through and listen to it. Really, really good stuff. We've only just scratched the surface. I mean, barely at all. We've already gone through 2 hours. So maybe if the man is willing, we can get him back on here at some point. Maybe you could get Alan to come on with you again, like you did on the one interview, because he's definitely worth having on, telling his perspective.
Well, Spencer, like I tell people, it's like Al and I, we went through a lot of this stuff together. Now I had a lot more than he did because I was here hunted a lot more than he did. I've had a lot more experience. But now Al by any means, he's had many, 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 and a lot of the really bad ones, he was there with me. So he was in another field and he was hearing what was going on, and he's had the encounters himself, that I was with him, and it just so happened that they went and picked on him instead of picking on me that day. But just having a friend that you look at like a brother. I mean, me and him grew up. He was always like an extra older brother to me growing up, and I had somebody there that was with me, and that was solidifying that I wasn't crazy, this shit just happened. And, here's what we went through. We went through a lot of this together. And that's, like I said, I went through and, I lost Dad April the 2nd this year. It'll be 2 years. Dad's been gone. By the way, cancer sucks horribly. But anyway, I went through a lot of this with my dad. Dad had his own encounters. Dad had his sighting. He saw the one step across the trail that I'd bush hogged. Dad saw one step across. I mean, he had daytime sighting. Dad heard them scream, roar, howl, whoop, a lot of huffs. These things come in, they'll huff at you, grunt at you. They need to listen to the one that, and now that creeped me out. One of the creepiest things I ever had was when I heard the two, when they came in on me and they got down there and got to talking back and forth. I mean, I listened to them communicate, and that lasted for several minutes. And it was a language that I can't tell you what it was, but it was a language. I mean, these things were talking back and forth, and it was that's, dude. If I'd had that, if I'd had that recorded clearly, and I'm talking about less than 40 yards from me, I just can't see them for the terrain. It would have rivaled it. I heard more of a conversation than the Sierra sounds as far as like listening to a conversation. I heard sound like two beings communicating back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It would have blown the Sierra sounds out of the water. I mean, totally. People would have been like, Sierra, what? Do you need to listen to this redneck in Alabama? It was crazy. And
did it sound like the same language as what you hear on the Sierra sounds?
A lot of it, Spencer. Yes, it did kind of. It was very similar to the Sierra sounds. It was the part of the Sierra sounds where you would hear it go, ooh, ah, ah, and you'd hear it would like raise up. It was kind of like, it'd do that. But it sounded in like Troy and I and Coonbo. Matter of fact, I was on the phone with Coonbo a while ago. He had done call me today, and I was talking to him right before we got on here. But it's kind of like I'll just say like almost like a Native American dialect, kinda, but it was like, it reminded me of like, and I love Chinese food. I love Chinese people, but my God, when you go order Chinese food and you hear the lady that took your order scream back at the dude that's preparing the food, it sounds like their husband and wife of 20 plus years, and she's madder than hell. You know, they talk, you know what y'all know what I'm talking about. It's just, they could be telling somebody good morning or how are you, and it sounds like, by God, they're ready to cut their throat. And
it sounds like me and Spencer.
yeah, well, you know, but you know, seriously, it's like their tone, and it boggles my mind, but that's kind of the way it came across. Is it was really loud, and it sounded like it was a heated conversation. But they would, and I tell everybody, look, I'll try to mimic part of it, and I do a horrible job from what I heard to what I get to come out right here. But it was like, it would go, oi, ha, ha, oi, hey, yeah, yeah, and then the other one would go, hi, 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 oh, yeah, and then it would stop, and then you hear the other voice. It was two voices. It would be like somebody hearing my voice and hearing Spencer's voice, and then hearing my voice and hearing Spencer's voice. One was deeper than the other, but I heard them, and it was back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and it sounded like I said, like the Chinese people when they're like back and forth, like they're excited, severely excited or upset. And like I said, when I hear them most of the time, it sounds to me like they're already mad. But that it would be like like a syllable. It was like it was like Mel Tillis had a stutter, and he would hear one, you know, it would be like one syllable would be, it gets stuck on that syllable, like that, like it go, hey, 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 oh, hey, 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 oh, yeah. And it was back and forth, and y'all, I listened to this for minutes and minutes, and I'm like, I've got to get my fat ass out of here. I need to be at the truck, because I don't know what these things are doing.
Oh, you killed me.
This is why you gotta come back. This is why you gotta come back.
Y'all just think I'm bad right now. You get me around a campfire with some good bourbon, I'll have everybody rolling.
That's why I got to do this show this way. This is not being like politically correct. This is just how I talk to people, like whenever we go camping and everything, because I mean, this is how you get a sense for what people are saying and what people are actually like, and how real the subject is. I mean, if you paint it too professionally, in my opinion, it's going to lose some of the flavor, some of the feel for it. But Greg, thanks for coming on. Don't worry, y'all. We will get him back on here, even though he thinks that the Alabama white sauce is the actual white sauce, and even though he's Mr. I shot a damn deer at 160 yards while it was running. But look at all his deer heads, so I can't talk.
I want to hear about them signs you got behind you.
Hey,
those glass or metal?
Well, they're aluminum. And I was going to tell you, your sign I saw last night where you was dogging Spencer about your new sign. That sign looks awesome. Spencer's going to need one with some more color. He needs some more of the rainbow in his.
And extra glitter. Yes, I agree.
Yes, glitter. Lots of
extra glitter.
Glitter is like the sprinkles on something.
That's right.
Yes,
it tops it all off.
But now, you know, not everybody deserves sprinkles. But yeah,
y'all, I'd make him one just like it to match. That way he can put it right there on his wall, just right above his head.
Yeah. But anyway, on these signs right here, Alan works in a big major sign business that he works. I was trying to think what his actual title. He's a fabricator.
Yes.
They make signs for like hospitals. They make stuff for U.S. embassies. They ship stuff all over the world. He does like metal work. They Target, the big signs out front on the building. They build those. He does everything from do the vinyl work on them to do the aluminum welding. He wires them up, puts the lights in them. They make it's amazing. You can go on one of the cool ones they do or did, Alabama Theater. Go on Alabama Theater. The sign is like an arrow pointing up, and this thing is like 60, 70 feet tall, and the letters are, you know, huge. I mean, 7, 8 feet tall. But it's a big, like a marquee sign kind of, but it's like the letters or the word Alabama spelled out, but it's coming down like ALABAMA. They built that sign that's on there. The sign had been there for forever and ever and ever, for years and years and years. It was a big major landmark in Birmingham. Well, they replaced it about 3 years ago. Al built that big sign, and it was on like television. It was in the newspapers, but they make major signs. But anyway, he took a scrap piece of aluminum, and they took a water jet machine, and he cut this thing out. This thing is like 1/8 thick aluminum, and I've got this, the inside part, but the outside part is like a 4x4 square. So I can take this, and it goes back together like a little kid's puzzle. So the other one, I've got like the inside and the outside. The other one is what I put in the floor, and I took a torch and burned it in my floor. So I've got a Bigfoot that's 4 foot tall that's burning my floor at my man cave.
Do you have the brackets? Do you have the shelf brackets that Alan made right there? Are they there?
Oh,
You don't have to get up and get them if they ain't right there.
oh yeah.
Alan
Well, I mean,
cut out some.
hang on a second. Oh, if I get up. Let me get up a minute. I gotta, y'all. I might be able to make everybody dizzy. Hold on a second.
Get up.
Oh, let's see here. Now look, y'all gonna have to do anything you see in here. This
When he was spinning around showing his deer heads off, I seen all the little Bigfoot stuff he had setting back there. It's cool as shit.
Look at those.
You see that bracket?
Oh yeah.
I don't know how good y'all can see it. Let me see.
Yeah,
If I
you
get
can see it.
All right. Well, that's what the brackets are. That's what, yeah. And look, y'all, see how the hand is, the leading hand, it's like down, like it's cupped down. He's going to do me some more that are, it won't be quite like this. It'll just be the Bigfoot, but instead of his hand being like where its hand is down, like, you know, down like that, I want his hand up, like stretched. Let me get my app. I want it up like this. And the reason like that, it'll just be a Bigfoot with its arm outstretched where it's, you know, up like, let me get where, yeah, be like this, but right here.
Oh, yeah.
I want it where I put it on the wall, and it looks like the Bigfoot holding his hand, holding the lantern. That's what he's working on now. So I mean, it's kind of cool. They do all kind of things like that. And, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at with it. That's the next thing on there. That was my brainchild. I said, hey, dude, I've got these lanterns. I said, it'd be cool as crap if I had one of those metal Bigfoot made out of aluminum. I could bolt it to the wall, and it don't have the trees and stuff. It's just a Bigfoot, but instead of his hand, you know, down, I want it up to where he's like holding the lantern. And if it's, you know, 8 foot or 8 inches tall, that's going to put the lantern 8-10 inches out away from the wall, and it ain't gonna hurt nothing. And man, you talking about a cool bracket to hold the lantern there. So that's the next brainchild we got going on. And Spencer, you drag yourself by here. That bracket right there, that's yours. There's 2 of them.
I'm gonna come by there and get me that. I've been wanting that thing since you showed it. Yeah.
Yeah. He's supposed to be. He's got some more cut out. He's got to do the aluminum welding. I think he's got 6 more sets. So I think it's 12 more that he's done. That some of our special Bigfoot friends is going to have him a little gift.
Any man that could weld aluminum is a talented individual anyway.
Oh yeah. He's man. They do some unreal stuff. Some of the logos they have to do that goes to the U.S. embassies. It's like the eagle, like the eagle that spread its wings out each side, and then like in its claws, it's got like the arrows, like the arrow sheath and all that. It's like the Great Seal for the United States.
Yeah,
they do those. They do some of those. They'll be like 8 feet tall.
Oh,
and it's just like a 8 foot circle with a big eagle in it, and everything has to be. It's all made out of aluminum and hand welded. It's crazy. I mean, it is unreal at some of the stuff they do.
I know. I keep saying Alan should switch and just start selling those things. I keep saying that.
Yeah, he could probably do pretty good.
Yeah. We will try to get Greg back on here, but for now, y'all, we got to bounce. We're a little bit over 2 hours right now and everything. Got some stuff in the works for next week, but we will get Greg back on here. Sorry we were late. Try to do better on that next time. I'll put the links in. Please go back and watch Greg's other interviews. I'll tell you right now, the Southern Bigfoot Chronicles book, or whatever it's called, by Tal Bronco, is well worth reading. I think pretty much everything in that book is in Alabama. Yeah. And we got to get Greg back on to cover the one story about his dad and the deer that got stolen. That's actually in the book.
It is.
Anyway, that's all I got. Misty, you got anything before we peace out?
No, I don't think so.
No, you do all your giggles and remarks on Facebook, huh?
Well, maybe guys, it won't be. Maybe it won't be long. We can sit around a campfire and we can just swap stories.
Yeah.
Spencer's just mad because he's finally met his match.
We'll do a live from around the campfire. Anyway, Barry Browning showed up. Nice to see you, brother. Anyway, thank you, everybody in the chat. Thank you very much for making it tonight. I greatly appreciate it. Make sure you check out all the other shows that we're kind of affiliated with and the people that we know and support and everything. And I always miss some of them, but obviously Beast TV. So you can go to Sawdust Beast on Facebook. You can find out a lot of information about all this stuff on the Facebook page. But absolutely catch their show when they get back to doing it. And for everybody that's watching, they are taking a little bit of a break. They're tired, holiday season kicked in. They're just taking a little bit of a break, but they'll get back onto it.
Catch up on the old shows right now until they get going. There's years of shows on there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Check out Mark Green's channel. You learn a lot about homesteading and farmsteading, and you learn a lot about everything on there. That's a really good channel. That's one of my favorites. It's Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead Life. Absolutely check out Chris Reinhardt, Discover Sasquatch. Who else am I missing? Mist?
I think, I don't want to get it wrong, but Bigfoot Lake had said earlier, I think they're going to start doing a premiere.
Bigfoot Lake's got some really interesting stories, and of course, always check out Dixie Cryptid for entertainment value and everything. Because, Cam's a great guy and he just puts on an excellent show. I like to listen to that while I drink coffee in the morning.
And Cryptid Connections with Kyle. He's been trying to do some lives through the week and shows too.
Yep. There's a bunch of good stuff out there. Take your pick. But anyway, that's all we got for tonight. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here and watching the show, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Greg.
Oh, y'all welcome. Enjoyed it.
Bye.